What's happening, everybody? Welcome back. This is Forgo, and today we're going to talk about transcending cards. And this is something that I thought was a really good idea when I saw it originally, but I don't think Netmarble really implemented it the way it should have been implemented. And we'll talk about that as we go through this video. But I'm going to explain how to transcend your cards, what cards maybe you'd want to transcend, the characters you might want to transcend cards for if you decide to actually do this, but you might not want to by the end of this video. We'll see. It's really going to depend on you and how you feel about this and the amount of resources that you're going to have. So if you jump into the battle card, the first thing that you want to know is you can transcend any card that you want. You can transcend your 3 PGs, your 5 PGs if you want to. You can transcend your set cards. You can transcend your option cards. You can transcend like even down to like 4-star, maybe even 3-star. I haven't tested 3-star, but I know for 4-star cards, once you evolve them to 5-star, you can transcend them. So that is something to note. Also something to note is a difference between 5-star and 6-star as far as transcending goes is 5-star cards actually require you to use, 4-star cards, you have to use 3 cards to transcend, which there's just no way I would do that. I wouldn't advise doing that. So if you go up to the 5-star cards, let's see if I can find one here. I've already transcended a card all the way up. So a 5-star card can go up to level 55. And whenever you transcend a 5-star card, it takes 2 other 5-star cards to transcend it. So right now, you're going to need 2 5-star cards to transcend this thing. The first thing to note is make sure that you don't delete a card that you're actually going to use on other characters. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but I just want it to be said to make sure all of you are aware. And your fest cards, your 6-star cards, these babies only require 1 card. Well, this isn't leveled up. Let me find one that's actually leveled up so we can do it. Here we go. These only require 1 card. And it's just got to be a card of the same rank. So, a 6-star, you can use. So if you have a 6-star fest card, you can use another 6-star fest card to level up. If you're using a 5-star card, you can use another 5-star card. Well, 2 5-star cards to level up. So that's one difference between a 6-star and a 5-star. 6-star can actually go up to level 60, whereas a 5-star can go up to level 55. And the CP differences are quite massive. I mean, you're going to get a lot more CP from leveling up fest cards. Now, I realize a lot of people don't have a lot of fest cards lying around, and when I tell you about how many resources you actually use to do this, you might reconsider actually wanting to do this. So I've actually already leveled up 1 card. I've leveled up the cooldown card here, and I've also leveled up this signature card right here. And I ended up getting this increased defense type fighter attack by 5.9%. So the thing about this is whenever you hit transcend, this little question mark over here, you can actually click on that thing and you can actually look at all the stats that you can gain. Now, something that I truly hate and I can't stand is that there are 60 stats in here, many of which that aren't really that great. Now, these increased balance type fighters, critical damage is good. The critical rate isn't bad. Like, increased attack is nice. But you have a lot of them that are like, decreased damage from defensive fighters or decreased damage from a certain type of dot. And those are just kind of more like a PvP thing. You're really not looking for those. You're looking for the ones that increase attack. That's really what you want, increase attack, because if you get a stat that says increased attack, that's going to apply to all your characters. So this is the first thing to note about doing this. Whenever you transcend a card, you want to transcend a card that's going to be universal for all of your characters. And because there's 60 freaking stats in here, you have a 1.6% chance of getting the stat that you want. That is abysmal. That is terrible. That is horrible, guys. That's just oh, it's bad. So we'll go to a cooldown card here, and we'll just level up a cooldown card, and I'll run you guys through the process. So since we're doing a 5-star card, you're actually going to need 2 other 5-star cards. So I'm just going to go ahead and use these cooler cards. I never use these things for anything. Transcended costs 40,000 gold. We're going to get 1 star. Okay, so now what it does is it gives you a choice between 2 stats. It's going to let me either choose, decreased balance type fighter attack, shock damage received by 1%, or nothing. The first time you do it, you only have this one option. So you're just going to go ahead and select it. Now, I really wish that you could select multiple, not just 2 different ones. That really sucks. The next thing you got to do after you transcend it the first time is you got to level the card up. You got to level the skill enhancement up. And this does require a lot of resources. And then you also got to level up the level of the card. Once you do that, then you can transcend it again. So we'll hit transcend. We'll find us 2 fodder cards here. Let me see here. What's a good fodder card? There's one right there. Cards I never use at all. Okay, so now it's going to give us an option again for the stats. So right now we have we have a choice of increase attack TIE fighter critical damage by 2.3%, or we can decrease bound TIE fighter shock damage received by 2.4%. So you want something that's going to be universal for all of your characters. That's really the way to go. Or like, say for example, you're trying to level up, you're trying to get a stat for bleed damage. If this was bleed, then I would go ahead and keep it. Now, because it says increase attack TIE fighter critical damage by a certain percent, I'm actually going to go with that because a lot of, this is going to be a universal stat. So I'm going to click on that. And there we go. And then you got to level it up again. So we'll go ahead and level this thing up. Another difference, by the way, between a 5-star and a 6-star card whenever you're transcending is a 6-star card can actually go up to skill level 7, whereas a 5-star card can go up to skill level 6. Let's level this baby up. And I have a, an insane amount of resources, when it comes to this kind of thing. So I can go ahead and show you this and do this for you. So we'll transcend again. And let's find us 2 more fodder cards. Let's see. We can always farm for these right here. I know some of you are thinking, man, those are leveled up. I know. But I don't use them. I haven't used them in a long time, in ages. Okay, so now we got increased tactile fighter. It keeps the same stat that you selected previously. So that's a good thing. But then it'll give you the option to, change the stat if you want. So I could change to increase defense type fighter defense by 2.2%, but I'd rather keep the critical damage because it's going to be for my attack fighters. In my situation, a lot of the characters that I use, like Keo is an attack type fighter. A lot of my most powerful characters, Rugal, attack type fighter. It's really going to depend on you. That's something else you need to think about whenever you're looking at these stats. So the first thing is you want cards that are going to be universal to all your characters. And you want a stat that's going to be pretty universal for most of your characters. It's not going to be for all, obviously, because you have defensive fighters, you have balanced type fighters, and you have attack type fighters. But you want like whatever characters you're using more often than not in the game. Like if you're using more attack type fighters and like guild raids, fighter robot, things of that nature, then having this attack type fighter critical damage is actually going to be really good. If you're want to level up more of your defensive fighters, then yeah, I would have kept the defensive stat. So you kind of got to play it by ear. And just look at the resources that I'm using. It's a lot. It's a lot. And this is just a 5-star card. Whenever you start leveling up a 6-star card, it's going to be even more. And by the way, some of the cards that I'd recommend doing this for is these cooldown cards, because these are universal. These are universal. They're going to work on every single character. You don't feel like if you get a stat on it that isn't useful, like no matter what stat you get on it, it could be useful for a character in the game because they are universal cards. So we'll transcend it again. Let's see here. We'll use that. And no, I don't want to use that one. Let me see here. Yeah, we'll use that. I know some of you are like, oh God, man, why are you deleting that card? Okay, so now we have increased defense TIE fighter shock damage by 5.2%. And this is what I mean, man. Getting a 1.6% chance of getting the stat you want it's just abysmal. It's terrible, right? It's bad. So we'll do this again. And look at that. We just used 43 4-star cards right there to level that thing up. And we're going to use from 45 to 50, we use 69 of those 3 stars there. It racks up. You're going to use a tremendous amount of these things. So we'll transcend it again. And let me see if I can find 2 stats, 2 cards that I don't need. We don't need that one. And I don't need these Rio cards. The Rio cards are really good for, newer players, but for someone like me, not really. Not on this account. Okay, so you got increased bound type fighter HP by 3.4%. Maybe if you're trying to get extra survivability, that might be all right. But again, for me, in my opinion, the increased attack type fighter critical damage is just going to be better. And notice that it keeps going up and up and up and up. And this is going to be maxed out at level 6. It's maxed out once you get your skill level to 6, at least on a 5-star card. And now the card is completely maxed out. Now the thing is, once you max out a card, whether it's your 5-star or your 6-star, you can always transcend them again. If you want, you can always transcend them again and try to get a different stat. But remember, you only have a 1.6% chance of getting the stat you want. And that is why, like, whenever you're doing this, you really want to use those cards that are going to be universal for multiple characters. I mean, these cooldown cards are going to be really good, but whenever you get a card like this one here, I leveled up, right? And, you know, the increased attack is always going to be good. And that there's an argument right there. Like, you have these cards like the Cooler option card, the K option card that offer increased attack by 5%. And then they also offer 1.2 seconds of cooldown for any character. The thing about these cards, like these types of cards, is that, you know, we have an increased attack by 13% for 5 seconds and grant super armor for 2 seconds when an SS fighter tags in. So if you really want to reap the full benefits of a card like this, or any other card that applies to a specific character or characters, then you're going to be looking for a certain dot or a certain type of attack. And it's going to make it more difficult to get the stat you want. That's why I say, like, the cooldown cards are really going to be good to start with. Plus the cooldown cards, you're only leveling up one card. So, like, whenever you get into, like, leveling up set cards, this is going to be a nightmare. This is going to be an absolute nightmare. By the way, just to let you all know, when I leveled up that signature card, this one right here, I used 12 fest cards, 12, to get this stat here, because I kept getting crap stats. 12 fest cards. Yeah, that is a lot. That's a lot of resources, and you could end up using a lot more than that just trying to get the stat you want. And that's why I'm telling you that using cards that are going to be universal for all your characters is going to be better off. I mean, if I would have got poison damage on this card, then more than likely I could have found a character with poison damage and wouldn't have to keep re-rolling it. If I had a card with, you know, shock damage, the same thing, right? That's what I'm talking about. I mean, you're still going to have, you know, there's going to be crappy stats in here that they're just terrible, right? Like the increase to dot damage is going to be good. The increase to attack fighter, defensive fighter, and balance type fighters is going to be good. But whenever you get like these ones, like right here, these decreased damage from a certain dot, I mean, that's just not that great. I mean, the decreased burn might be all right against Immortal Vulcan, but this is not what you're looking for. You really want more damage. You want to increase to your dot, or you want to increase to your attack. That's really what you're looking for. Unless maybe you're PvP oriented, then maybe you'll be looking for something else. But I think most players, that's what they're going to be looking for. The increase to critical damage and crit rate is pretty decent, and the thing that's good about that is it would apply to every single character in the game. That would be the nice thing about it. But like this card, like right here, I mean, this increased critical damage by 20% is only going to apply to DOA 6 characters. So if I level that thing up, now the good thing is, you know, we have 8 DOA 6 characters. So we got multiple dots. We got burn, we got starlight, we got shock damage, right? We got all those things available. We got bleed. So the chances of getting a stat that you want for a DOA 6 character, if you're using this card, is much higher than 1.6% chance, right? So these are things you have to keep in mind whenever you're going to transcend a card. I mean, it's very risky, guys. It's very risky to do this. It's going to cost you a lot of resources. I really think it's just a giant crapshoot, and I think you can get screwed pretty quick. I would not recommend leveling up your special cards right away. I think this is going to be more in-game, because these cards are specific to certain characters. Like, you know, if I level up a Keo card, this one right here, I'm going to want Burn or Starlight for SS Keo, right? I'm going to want extra or increase to attack type fighters, because, you know, SS Keo's an attack. He has Starlight and Burn. So I'm going to want one of those 3 stats when I transcend a card. And the chance of me getting that are pretty bad. They're not very good. And you might spend an insane amount of cards trying to get the right stat that you want for this 3PG or for a 5PG if that's where you chose to transcend. So I would not recommend transcending your 5PGs, your 3PGs, and really when it comes to your set cards, I really wouldn't recommend that either. That's more in-game stuff. That's later down the road if you ever decide to do this. Because with the set cards, I mean, this would be a nightmare just because you got 3 of them, right? So if you're like, say I mean, it's a weird thing, right? If you're trying to get optimal stats, like I'd want like all attack for each one of these set cards. And I want all three of them to apply to a certain character so I can get all those extra dots stacking on top of each other and all that extra attack stacking on top of each other to a specific character. That's the way that I would want to do it. But I mean, you could get like an increase to defense on one card, you get an increase to attack on another card, increase to, balance on another card, and have kind of a well-rounded set, right? No matter what, you'll gain some extra attack. But I mean, it's just really tricky because you got 3 cards that you got to level up. So I really wouldn't recommend doing it. I really would start with the option cards. If you're going to do this, I would start with the option cards, and I would highly recommend either leveling up these kinds of cards right here that give you this increased attack and increased skill cooldown, because again, these 2 stats will apply to all of your characters. But I mean, you might feel kind of screwed because, say I get bleed if I transcend this card. Well, I mean, right? You're not getting more chill. You really would want more chill. So you might feel like, oh man, that kind of sucks, man. I got bleed on this, but I really want chill so I can gain, more chill on top of the chill that I'm already getting. That's only applies to Kula. See, that's the kind of the thing. And you got to weigh out your options as to, what cards you're going to level up. Now, these cards here, these are actually really good to level up because, again, you got the attack cooldown, and these stats apply to, just strike skills, or like the other BS card, this one here, that applies to blast. Like, these are good ones here. You have like this card right here that, applies to female fighters. So this one actually be really good too, because the chances of you getting a dot or a stat that you want on these types of cards is really good, because all the extra bonus stats that they have is going to apply to multiple characters, and it's just going to increase the chances of you getting what you want. So the biggest tip that I can give you, thank you for following. The biggest tip that I can give you is only level up cards, and this is just my personal opinion, only level up your option cards that you feel can apply to multiple characters. If you feel like it's not going to, if it has a specific dot or something like that, then the chances of you getting what you want, it's going to be rough, my friends. I mean, you got cards like this one right here, and this one here, it's got this stun with the Sherman exclusive, but it deals the shock damage. So like on a card like this, you'd want extra shock damage. The best advice I could give you, like this card here, it increases shock and chill, right? And it increases attack by 5% for 5 seconds when attacking shock and chill. So, I mean, you could put a card, you could try to enhance something like this, but again, it's a 5-star card. Really, the only 5-star cards I'd want to level up is the cooldown cards. But then you got a card like this, right? And you could get extra dot, you get extra critical damage. I mean, you could go a lot of different ways as far as leveling up your cards. Seriously, I could make an entire video about this. I really could. There's just so much to think about. But I honestly would just recommend leveling up your cooldown cards. I think that's going to be your best bet, because it's going to increase the chances that you're going to have a card that's going to have a stat that you can use on certain characters in the game. You're going to have more characters available to you. Well, more characters will benefit more from leveling up one of these cards versus maybe some other cards. And you're going to want to be looking for stats that's going to buff up the characters that you use in multiple game modes. Characters that you're using in Guild Raid, Mortal Dungeons, Spider Robots, right? Of course, all your SS, your BS characters, collaboration characters. Those types of characters are really the ones that you're going to want cards for. So you're going to be looking for dots and increased attacks for those characters. And this is definitely something that's more of an in-game content thing. This is not something for a newer player. There's no way that I'm going to do this on my free-to-play account at all. I just can't do it. I don't have the cards available, as many of you won't if you're newer players, if you haven't played the game very long. Veterans, they're going to have, a good assortment of cards lying around, so they'll be able to do this. But again, I mean, you can spend an insane amount of cards, guys. I mean, you can go really crazy. You can spend 20 fest cards and maybe not get the stat you want when you're leveling up another 6-star card. So, I mean, that's just something to think about if you decide to do this. I really, really wish that Netmarble would have gave us a higher chance and wouldn't have put so many stats in here. I really wish it just been, increase attack or increase the defense or increase the balance or something like that instead of all these different stats. I mean, there's just way too much RNG in here, and that's, having that kind of RNG crapshoot, it's just trash, guys. It really is. It's way too much trash. So only the players that are going to have lots of cards lying around are really going to benefit from something like this. But the cards do add an insane amount of CP. I mean, if I jump into my, if I jump into my fighters here, and I click on Rugal here, just as an example, and I unequip the cooldown card, we just lost 1700 CP, and we'll equip this one here, and we just gained 5000 CP. So, I mean, well, I was switching between a cooldown card and a card with extra attack, but you can see the difference. I mean, you're going to gain a lot of CP, and in some cases, you're going to gain even more than that from doing this. So it will make a big difference as far as the CP that you're going to be using, or as far as the CP that you're going to be getting. And as far as whether or not you should really transcend your cards, that's going to be completely up to you. I don't think new players should be doing it. I'm maybe intermediate if you got a lot of cards lying around, but again, it's an RNG crapshoot. It really is. You just don't know what kind of stat you're going to get. 1.6% chance of getting a stat that you want is abysmal. It's just terrible. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it really should have been better than that. And I really hate the way that Netmarble implemented this. I mean, it was a good idea, but it was executed poorly. Just terrible how they did this. Way too much RNG. I mean, I'm fine with a little RNG, but that low a chance of getting the stats that you want is just horrific. So let me know how y'all feel about the transcending card system, and I do stream on Twitch at 9 p.m. GMT plus 7 time. The link will be in the description below, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Y'all take care and have a good one. See ya.